Okay. I know I don't want those folks who made the time to be here at 6 o'clock to be kept waiting. So I'm going to begin. Let me start by introducing myself. I'm Jim McLaughlin. I'm the superintendent. And with me this evening is also Christina Dallapaloo, our assistant superintendent. Tonight, we also have with us Damien Irizarry. Damien is our guidance counselor at the high school, one of our guidance counselors at the high school. And Damien is always with me at the parent forums as really a tremendous interpreter and a partner in all of these discussions. So Damien, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself to the group and letting them know that you'd be here for interpreting services.
Muy buenas noches. El señor indicó que quería empezar la reunión un poco más temprano antes de que llegaran los demás participantes para no dejar que los que han llegado seguir esperando. Él quería también presentarse a él mismo, dejarles saber que él es el señor McLaughlin, el superintendente, y que también la asistente superintendente, la señora Dallapaloo, también está aquí. Yo voy a servir como su intérprete esta noche. Si tienen algunas dudas o preguntas, si pueden alzar la mano, etcétera, yo voy a traducir para ustedes y voy a también traducir para el señor en su presentación. Muy buenas noches, aquí a la orden. Thank you.
This week is the first time that we've actually done parent forums in this way, using the Zoom platform. And so I just wanted to begin by going over a few procedures so that we can have a good productive meeting and have some dialogue together. Everyone, as you might note, is muted so that when you come into the meeting, your microphone is not on, and that helps you to hear everything. But if you do have a question or you'd like to speak, in the lower corner of your screen is a hand, and you can raise your hand and we will look for your hand and call on you so that, and I'll announce your name and our facilitator will unmute you. So that's just the kind of procedure that seemed to work well on Monday. And we thank you for your cooperation with that. I also want to let you know that it's helpful if you have headphones, but you don't have to have headphones, obviously. But we sometimes find out that the sound quality is better. I also, before asking Damien to speak, want to point out that the session is being recorded, and after we're complete tonight, we will post the recording of tonight's session on the website. So it's always good to tell people that before they say something. They say, how come you didn't tell me that we were being recorded? We wanted to make sure that we made that announcement in the beginning. Damien?
Sí, gracias. El señor indicó que usualmente no tenemos este tipo de reunión, pero con lo que tenemos en esta pandemia nos estamos reuniendo de esta forma para tener estos tipos de reuniones y pláticas. Quería también cubrir algunas de las reglas para que entiendan las normas de este tipo de reunión y sus oportunidades para participar. Una de las cuales inicialmente cuando entran a la reunión van a notar que están enmudecidos y los micrófonos en silencio, pero eso es inicialmente. Cuando tengan alguna pregunta en la mano derecha, va a haber un botón que dice Raise Hand o el símbolo de un icono de una mano que también la puede dar para hacerle el facilitador saber que usted tiene una pregunta. Luego el superintendente puede llamar su nombre para que usted entonces tenga la oportunidad de hablar. Él va entonces... quería darle a usted las gracias para participar y su cooperación en este tipo de normas y reglas. Y quería que usted también sepa de que si usted quiere utilizar audífonos, que eso también ayuda en la calidad del sonido que oigan. Y quería también darle a ustedes saber que la reunión está grabada para que lo sepan antes de tiempo. Y después de la reunión van a postearla en la página web de la escuela y el distrito. Gracias.
On June 20th, tonight, as you know, we're going to be discussing the return back to school, our return plan, at least the state that it is in at this point. and also really asking and inviting you to share some feedback to help us as we finalize that plan. On June the 26th, the state of New Jersey issued a document called The Road Back. And shortly thereafter, we did send a copy to everyone, to all our parents in the district. So you may have had an opportunity to look at it. If not, or if you need another copy sent to you, please let us know. Be happy to do that. The Road Back consists of 104 pages of guidance from the Department of Education, telling us the conditions under which students in some form can return to school. And that is the terminology they use, in some form. There's a requirement at this time that students do return in some form. So school districts as a whole do not have the option to be totally online. That's the governor's decision. There's, some talk that perhaps the governor may actually do that. We don't know. But at this time, the requirement is that we have in-person instruction in some form, and that we follow the 104 pages of guidance in putting together what that looks like.
Muy buenas noches. Esta noche vamos a discutir y hablar sobre el plan, cómo vamos a enlazar, cómo empezaremos la apertura de la escuela y el año escolar en septiembre. Quería dejarles todos saber de que tendrán la oportunidad, que están invitados a dar sus opiniones, que lo van a tomar en consideración. También quería compartir con ustedes de que el gobierno del estado envió un plan para todos los distritos de New Jersey a cómo deberían abrir la escuela en septiembre, que tienen que abrirla en alguna forma. En particular usaron esa terminología, que no está aprobado de que los distritos individuales toman la decisión de completamente tener educación en la red o en internet, que tienen que tener educación en persona hasta este momento en alguna forma. El documento es de 104 páginas, se lo había enviado el Departamento de Educación, y él también el superintendente envió una copia a todos los padres. Si hay algunos de ustedes que no lo han recibido, solo hay que mandarle un mensaje y él le puede proveer una copia. No es opción, como le indiqué antes, de tener todo el año educativa completamente en internet, que hay que tener algún tipo de instrucción en persona. Y vamos a hablar sobre las diferentes formas en que lo vamos a asegurar para septiembre. Thank you.
Our final plan that we are putting together will be, and I say final, that's with a little asterisk next to it, because I'm not sure even after the final plan that it really truly will be final. But our final plan will be provided 4 weeks before the start of school. So we certainly, and this is part of the guidance, but something that we want to do as well, give our parents as much notice as possible. So obviously it's a pretty tight time frame. We have basically from June the 26th to August the 4th to put together a plan for hybrid learning, and I'll go through what we so far have come up with in that regard. So I do want you to know that we have been at work as soon as the guidance came out with a district steering committee, and then each of our schools has a pandemic response team who is working on a plan for the unique needs of that school and the students who attend that school. I also need to share with the community that there is a checklist that is due to come from the Department of Ed that our plan must meet. That checklist has not yet been finalized by the Department of Ed, and it hasn't been shared with us. So there's a number of reasons why we can't release the final plan until August 4th. One is that there are a lot of details we're still working on, but the other is that we have to make sure that we actually know what the Department of Ed is requiring of us. The guidance gives us a start, but the checklist is absolutely the requirements that we have to make sure our plan meets. And certainly one thing that we don't want to do is release a plan and then, you know, in a week say we have to do something different. You know, it's that's a little bit of a challenge. And I'll talk about some other challenges as we go along. But Damien, would you mind translating that much?
No worries. Quería indicarle que viene un plan finalizado, que el Estado requiere de que todos los distritos enlacen este plan y que lo comparten con las demás familias 4 semanas antes de que empiece el año escolar. Ellos tuvieron solo del día 26 de junio hasta el día 4 de agosto para completar ese plan. Todavía están trabajando ese plan con la guía de los 104 páginas, pero el Estado ha indicado que van a salir con una nueva lista de condiciones que se requiere que cada distrito implemente, pero esa lista todavía no está disponible y el gobierno no lo ha compartido. Aunque se espera ese plan, esa lista de condiciones, el distrito de nosotros ya ha completado bastantemente un plan y lo van a finalizar para el día 4 de agosto, 4 semanas antes de la apertura del año escolar. Ellos no quieren soltar ese plan todavía porque puede haber algunos cambios y quieren darle una oportunidad al Estado de proveer esa lista de condiciones. También quieren no tener que cambiar el plan ya que lo han soltado. Por eso que se están esperando hasta la última fecha, el día 4 de agosto. Quería también indicarle de que va a ser una combinación de enseñanza virtual y en persona, una enseñanza híbrida. Se espera de que tal vez haya otros cambios en el futuro, pero hasta ahora van a operar con la información que ya tienen provido del Estado. Thank you.
So I would like to confirm that the first day of school remains September the 2nd, and that is our target for actually beginning the school year. I don't want to recite the guidance. As I said, there is 104 pages of it, but let me tell you 4 big themes that are in the guidance that will drive some of the things that we'll share with you tonight. One is, and I think probably the most critical health piece of advice, and that is spacing. We know that more than anything, spacing is the key to a healthy environment with this pandemic. And the recommended spacing, which we will certainly adhere to, is 6 feet. Another large part of the plan and our plan that we have been looking at is entry screening. Seeing our students and our staff when they enter school each day. That would also be screening for our bus drivers and screening for our custodians. So everyone who enters, and if anyone has been to a place of business, you've probably already gone through some screening. And I know I've had some appointments. You have to answer some questions and your temperature is taken, and it would be something along those lines. Cleaning and disinfection are huge. We know that the environment has to be as clean as possible, and certainly disinfected with products that are approved to fight the COVID virus. And we have been acquiring those. Actually, we've had a number of them since this started, but we are escalating those materials that we have for disinfection purposes. We are finalizing the routine of that. Some of what goes into the schedule we came up with is the time that disinfecting takes. So cleaning and disinfection is a big theme in our plan. And then another big area that we're looking at is the use of masks. What masks, who will wear them, how often, they will be provided, etc. So as I mentioned, there's a lot more in the plan, but those are some big themes that I wanted to mention to you as we start to share some preliminary information about what we have in place.
Inicialmente se espera de que el año escolar abrirá el día 2 de septiembre, como el primer día escolar. Él quería que ustedes sepan para estar preparados para ese día y para el año escolar. Él quería repasar 4 temas en particular. Esos temas, hay más, obviamente, en los 104 páginas, pero son los más importantes y quería que todos sepan cuáles son esos temas, especialmente como son prioridad. El primero tiene que ver con salud y sabemos que la clave para enfrentar la pandemia es manteniendo un distanciamiento social de 6 pies. Eso es algo que están implementando en el plan para la apertura de la escuela en septiembre. Adicionalmente, quería indicarle que se va a ver una verificación y examinación de todos los que entran a la escuela, tomando temperatura, etcétera, cada día. Y eso no es solo para los estudiantes, pero también para la facultad, incluyendo a los que conducen los autobuses y a los conserjes también. Quieren que ustedes sepan que ya tienen un poco de experiencia con eso, y además nosotros tal vez hemos experimentado algún tipo de verificación entrando a algunas tiendas o institutos, pero es un requisito de acuerdo al plan del gobierno estatal. Otro tema es desinfección y la limpieza de la escuela. Han determinado que tiene que haber un horario para cómo y cuándo desinfectar. Ya han completado con la cantidad de materia y recursos que se requiere para hacer esa limpieza, para desinfectar especialmente y mantener un ambiente limpio. También quería indicarle de que el cuarto tema es mascarillas. El uso de mascarillas, quién se lo tiene que poner, cuándo, etcétera. Todo eso es parte del plan. Thank you.
So I mentioned before the committees that we have, both at the district level and the school level. But a big part of putting these plans together is also knowing from a parent perspective what your concerns are, what your reactions are to what I'm going to share with you tonight. We had a forum on Monday in the daytime hours, and then felt if we have one in the daytime, one in the evening. Tonight is our second forum. And after both forums are completed, we will use some of what is shared to create a survey that we can give out to our parents as a whole, so that everyone has an opportunity to provide some comments in writing. But we thought they'd be more relevant if they flowed from these forums, and that we had this chance for a dialogue. So that will lead us right up to some of the elements now that I'd like to share with you. And before I do that, Damien, perhaps you could speak now.
Se me había olvidado indicarle que de parte del plan estatal hay que crear algunos comités. El distrito tiene su propio comité para el enlace de la escuela del año escolar, que también, además de ese comité, existen equipos de cómo van a responder a la pandemia en cada escuela, porque cada escuela tiene una situación única. Y los que están involucrados en esos equipos van a estar más en comunicación con padres para averiguar cuáles son sus preocupaciones y ideas. Esta reunión, igual que la del lunes, el otro día, sirven para compartir sus ideas, para que entonces podremos crear un cuestionario para los demás padres que no podían atender. Se va a compartir ese cuestionario mañana, basado en muchas de las preocupaciones, ideas y opiniones de la última reunión y la de esta noche también. Thank you.
So here are some beginning thoughts, and I do want to emphasize these are pieces that we know right now that we'll be operating from, but there will be a lot more to the plan. But I think this is information that a lot of parents are anxious to know. One is that we will begin school on a shortened day. So 4 hours is the criteria that the state has set for a full academic day. So any in-person days will be 4 hours in length, and I'll share with you why. But the times for that would be 8:30 to 12:30 for kindergarten through 6th grade, and then 8:15 to 12:30 for middle and high school. So just a 15-minute difference for those two. The reason for the 4-hour day is, there's a couple of reasons, but the biggest reason is spacing. As you may know, our students eat commonly in the cafeteria. That's where their meals are, and it would be impossible to have 6-foot spacing in the cafeterias. It would also, one of the things we thought of is could we have meals in classrooms? But the problem with having meals in classrooms is that you would have to have lunch supervision in all of those classes. Our teachers have a lunch, and so providing them with lunch and students in a classroom just isn't something we could provide adequate supervision for. In a large room, you can have a few people supervise a large group of students. It just doesn't work in a classroom to classroom setting. The other piece I have to say is that we have to really be careful of materials. So, for example, we have already talked in our committees about not using shared materials, taking away as much as possible in the classroom that might have to be disinfected. When we have meals in school, you might remember this yourself from your school experience, but there's a tremendous amount of trash and a lot of exchange of materials happening. So the primary reason is spacing, but there are other elements as well about why we want to avoid having meals in school. We will still be providing meals, and that would be in a grab and go format like we used when we were distributing meals from March until the end of June, and how we're doing summer meals. So students on their dismissal would get their lunch in a bag for the day and their breakfast for the next day. They'd get their 2 meals. And that would be done at dismissal. We're still fine-tuning how that's going to work so that we don't have a long line of students waiting, because we certainly don't want that either, and we have to preserve spacing at the end of school. But as far as that kind of covers the 4-hour day, the reason for it, and how we're doing meals.
Okay. Quería compartir con ustedes algunos de los pedazos de este plan. Obviamente no todo, pero algunos que es bien importante para los padres, especialmente todos los que quieren saber inmediatamente de la prioridad y lo más importante. Quería compartir con ustedes que el día escolar solo durará 4 horas y ese horario va a ser de las 8:30 hasta las 12:30 para kinder hasta el 6º grado. Los que están en la intermedia de 7º hasta el 12º tendrían un horario de las 8:15 de la mañana hasta las 12:30 de la tarde. No se puede proveer un día más largo porque tenemos que mantener seguridad y también la salud de los demás. Una de las razones siempre siendo distanciamiento social, que es imposible mantener ese distanciamiento social en la cafetería. Es que es imposible mantener toda la gente juntas ahí, y la otra idea es que tal vez los estudiantes pueden comer o almorzar en los salones, pero ahí también encontramos otro problema, que no hay suficiente supervisión para todos los estudiantes en las aulas a esa hora. Así que como el estándar del Estado es que un estudiante tome 4 horas de instrucción, vamos a limitar eso de las 8:30 hasta las 12:30 para los de kinder a 6º y las 8:15 hasta las 12:30 para los de 7º al 12º. La otra razón, no solo distanciamiento, pero también materiales y la basura. Hay un intercambio bastante grande cuando se almuerzan los estudiantes en la escuela y la cantidad de basura que se crea. Por esa razón, se va a proveer todos los días a los estudiantes que están asistiendo a la escuela su almuerzo a las 12:30 para llevar. También se le va a entregar un desayuno para que puedan desayunar por la mañana. El mismo tipo de comida que han proveído desde marzo hasta junio y los mismos almuerzos que se le proveen a los estudiantes del verano. Cuando vienen a buscar comida, ahí se distribuye de esa misma forma. Sería todo por ahora. Thank you.
The other big part of the plan, as you may know, and every school district that you're following probably will be announcing some form of this, is that in order for us to have the spacing that we need, we have to reduce the amount of students who are in school every day. So that would mean that our students will come in groupings or cohorts, and what we are anticipating based on the size of our classes, well, let me say this first. Our personnel have gone in and actually have measured 6 foot out in each classroom, and how many students could be in that classroom keeping 6 feet. Depending on the room, that would be somewhere in the area of 10 or 11 students per classroom. Now, as you know, in Dover, we have some classes that are very, very heavily populated. One of our problems, and it's a challenge that we're truly looking to solve this year and next year and the years coming, and that is, how do we deal with classes, some of which have gone up to 40 students. We have classes, elementary classes with 40 students, which we know is unacceptable. We know that's certainly not a good situation. But at the same time, when we're looking to space students out, it means that we have to have multiple cohorts to do that. So at our elementary level, which is where our spacing is most keenly an issue, we will have 3 cohorts, which means students would attend every 3rd day, depending what group they're in. It'll probably be a colorized group, you know, so for example, if I'm in the green group, I would come on Monday. I would start on Monday. If I'm in the red group, I'd start on Tuesday. If I'm in the yellow group, I'd come on Wednesday. And we would provide a calendar for parents that would show what color group comes on what day. It would be every 3rd day. And those students would then have their class, and then the students who were not in school would learn virtually. And we're finalizing what that virtual instruction would look like. I know that that's also going to be a big, an area that parents are interested in, about the virtual part of the learning. But as far as the cohorts go, for kindergarten through 8th grade, it would be 1 every 3rd day. What students would come every 3rd day. At the high school only, we would have a different setup. As you know, classes are set up so differently at the high school. They're broken up into subjects and then levels of subjects, and there are different course offerings and electives. So students are spread out over many other classes. And so that presents a whole different dimension. But the high school would be using a 2 grouping or a 2 cohort procedure, where we would have 1 cohort attending school Monday, Tuesday, another cohort attending school Thursday, Friday, and Wednesday would be a full virtual day. At the high school level in particular too, we want to make sure that we're implementing the curriculum in a consistent way. So we're trying to balance both curriculum needs and spacing needs. The high school has had an active committee that has been working on what will meet both of those needs, and they feel that this 2 cohort level program would do that.
Hablando sobre el plan y asistencia a la escuela, como la prioridad siempre es distanciamiento social, quería indicarle de que haya medido el espacio que se encuentra en los salones para indicar exactamente cuántos estudiantes caben en un salón, mientras que mantengan su distanciamiento social de 6 pies. El número sale como en 10 o 11 estudiantes en cada aula. Los salones en las escuelas elementales bastantemente están repletas, y en algunos salones han tenido que manejar el año escolar con sobre 40 estudiantes en algunos casos en un salón. Aunque eso es una prioridad y lo ha sido por este año, y el plan para bajar y reducir esa cantidad de estudiantes sigue adelante para el año que viene. tienen que inmediatamente buscar la solución de solo tener 10 o 11 estudiantes en el salón. Para manejar eso se tiene que crear un horario de que incluye hasta 3 diferentes grupos de estudiantes. Un grupo, por ejemplo, indicado con un color, vamos a suponer que el color es amarillo, estudiaría ese primer día el lunes y no vendrá hasta el tercer día. Tenemos otro grupo y otro más. Cada grupo empieza la escuela cada tercer día. Y un calendario se le va a proveer a las familias para indicarle cuáles son las fechas que le tocaría a los estudiantes elementales para ir a la escuela en persona, de acuerdo a su grupo asignado. Los niveles que están divididos en 3 grupos son de kindergarten hasta el 8º grado. En el nivel de escuela superior es un poquito más diferente. Se requiere de que ahí, para poder balancear el currículo y también la seguridad y salud de los demás, van a dividir ese grupo de escuela superior entre 2 grupos solamente. A nivel de 9º hasta el 12º van a estudiar un grupo el lunes y el martes. Y el otro grupo estudiaría el jueves y el viernes, dejando el día miércoles para estudiar virtualmente ambos grupos. A nivel elemental, cuando los estudiantes no le toca ir a la escuela, esos 2 grupos también tomarían clases virtuales. Thank you.
One of the questions that's come up a number of times, especially a number of parents who have reached out to us, have asked, what about our pre-K program? You know, we're very excited about the prospect of our pre-K program in its 2nd year, because we have 23 classes lined up for our 3 and our 4-year-olds. And we are continuing to commit to that program. Obviously, preschool, hybrid preschool is its own challenge, but we are committed to preschool. We're not going to waver on that. The state has maintained the funding that it provided to us for preschool. And we are working with our 9 preschool partners. We work with 9 entities to provide those classes. And we are working with them to make sure that they also follow these plans.
Quería confirmar para los padres que estaban preocupados sobre el compromiso a crear los grupos pre-kinder. Se ha creado 23 salones para proveerle instrucción a los estudiantes que tengan 3 y 4 años. Eso fue la promesa del distrito y van a seguir adelante con eso, ya que los fondos están asegurados de parte del Estado. Obviamente, para mantener la salud y seguridad de esos estudiantes, igual que a los demás, va a ser un horario virtual y en persona también. Todavía están trabajando con los otros 9 institutos que van a proveer esos salones para asegurar que puedan mantener distanciamiento social, seguridad y salud. Thank you.
So those are the items we've confirmed. There are a number of items that are not yet finalized or finally determined. And I just want you to know what we're working on. So I don't have an answer for these areas yet. But we will on August the 4th. That it'll be definitely part of the plan. And so let me just tell you a few of those things. One, what will be the extent of our mask requirement? Right now, I'm going to tell you truthfully, we are leaning towards masks for everyone. And we feel that in keeping with the various guidance, not just the state guidance, but also looking at CDC guidance and other health organizations, that masks are a good deterrent. They help protect other people. And we have ordered a lot of masks for that purpose, but I'm not yet ready to share a finalization of what that would look like. We are also looking at sports. Now, you may know we did a phase 1 for high school sports, which is really just it's really cardio. There's no equipment, there's no plays, there's no competition. It's really just getting some of our athletes out and exercising them in small groups while maintaining all the health guidelines. The phase 1 doesn't mean that we are proceeding with fall sports. It's a big question, obviously. We missed our spring season, and I know that's tough on athletes, but we have to really take a hard look at fall, and we have not yet even determined if we will move into phase 2. Along with that are all intramurals and also our marching band. So those are areas yet to be determined, although by August the 4th, we will have an answer in our plan for that. Virtual learning and what virtual learning will look like is not fully defined, but I can tell you this much. We have, the district has ordered 1,400 iPads for its K-5 population. 6th grade would have existing iPads, and 7th through 12th grades would have Mac laptops that we have here in the district. The issue that came up only today, so this is cutting news, is that apparently there is a nationwide shortage of all technology parts and technology products. So although we put in our order well in advance of the school year, and in typical times, they would be here on September the 2nd, we're being told by Apple not to expect them on September the 2nd, which obviously was not the news we were hoping for. Nevertheless, we know that we're lined up. There are vendors working very hard with us to get us those iPads, and that would have with it a keyboard and a case. And we are right now in the process of getting a lot of equipment ready for our upper grade students that we already have on hand. Maybe I should stop there and then I'll continue.
Okay. Como no todo está completamente finalizada, él quería compartir algunas de las cosas que sí, bueno, de lo que habíamos mencionado, eso ya está finalizado, mejor dicho. Él quería indicarle algunas cosas que siguen siendo una prioridad, pero que están trabajando al diario para tratar de mantener un año escolar, que tengan todo con lo necesario para completar sus asignaciones, etc. El día 4 de agosto, como quiera, va a estar el plan finalizado y él va a compartir todos estos diferentes detalles con ustedes. Mientras tanto, todavía están discutiendo el uso de las mascarillas. Por ejemplo, el requisito del uso de la mascarilla, si va a ser algo que todos los tendrán que usar y cuándo y el tipo de mascarilla. Ellos ya han coleccionado a través del tiempo mascarillas para todos los que entren a la escuela. Como quiera, todavía están buscando más y están hablando con diferentes institutos de cómo proveerlo, de acuerdo a la guía estatal. También, que en términos de deportes, querían que ustedes sepan de que entraron a la primera fase este verano para mantener deportes. Como quiera, no es deporte en términos regular y típico, sino que este verano no están bregando con equipo. Los diferentes deportes básicamente están haciendo ejercicio, pero no están jugando o participando en partidos. El debate de cómo y cuándo van a mantener una temporada en el otoño sigue, pero eso también eventualmente va a estar finalizado. Por ejemplo, también la banda de marcha musical es otro aspecto que están en debate. Pero van a tener respuestas para todos eventualmente, especialmente para cuando finalicen el 4 de agosto. En términos de tecnología, ya ordenaron 1,400 iPads. Esas computadoras se le va a proveer a los estudiantes de kindergarten hasta el 5º grado. Ya existen una cantidad de iPads en el distrito y se le va a proveer a los de 6º grado esos iPads. Para los estudiantes que están en 7º, 8º, 9º, 10º, 11º y el 12, todos ellos van a recibir las computadoras laptop de MacBook Pro que ya tenemos. se está arreglando todos para asegurar que todo funciona y para tenerlos listos para cuando empecemos el año escolar. Hay un déficit nacional en términos de tecnología y la cantidad de materia que existe. Otros estados han experimentado este mismo problema, pero con los vendedores que trabajan con nosotros, nos han prometido que lo vamos a tener, pero tal vez no para el día 2 de septiembre, cuando llega la apertura del año escolar. Pero ellos siguen trabajando juntos para tratar de proveer esa tecnología a los estudiantes lo más pronto posible. Cuando se provee, va a llegar también con teclado y un estuche para cargar la tecnología. Para ojalá estar completamente listo lo más pronto posible. Thank you.
Damien, just one clarification. The MacBooks that we have are for distribution, are not MacBook Pros. I think they're MacBook Airs. We do have some Pros in the school, but most people would be getting. I don't know if that's a big deal in terms of a big distinction, but I just want to be accurate.
MacBook Air.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Para los estudiantes de séptimo al 12º van a recibir un MacBook Air, no lo que yo dije que era un MacBook Pro, pero es un producto Apple y es una computadora laptop.
So I think just continuing with some of the things that we're continuing to work on and that are not finalized yet, I've received a number of inquiries from parents about what live streaming will look like. You know, will classrooms, will students who are at home connect right to their classroom? What will they see if they do? And we are working with our committees, that includes a lot of teachers, in terms of making sure that we are not making these plans in isolation, but making sure that they're all doable, and that they'll work, ultimately the most important thing, that they'll work well for students. You may know, and actually this happened since the meeting on Monday with parents, that the governor recently announced an option for parents, that if a parent would like for education to be all virtual, that he made that commitment that would be a possibility. We, just so that you know, a part of that announcement was that guidance would be forthcoming to school districts explaining what that is like. We have not yet received that guidance. It'll be important guidance because sometimes there are distinctions in the guidance that don't come through in a big announcement like that. So we certainly will make that available in the way that the state would like us to, and we will have that certainly in our plan on August the 4th as well. What I want to say, and then I'm going to stop talking because it's supposed to be a forum and I've been talking most of the time. Our number one, we've said this from the beginning, is safety. Safety and health for all our students. Everything else flows from that. We are educators. We are invested in learning. We want our students to learn. And we do know that students learn best when in a social environment and a social dynamic. But we also know that we are in an unprecedented time. And our number one has to be to make sure that our students are healthy, that our staff are healthy, that the families in our community are healthy, because we do know that there are large transmittal issues that also have to be considered in all of this. And then just my final comment is, we are also well aware that there's a great deal of talk that the governor may switch direction and potentially say that schools won't be open on September the 2nd. And we're ready for that. We will plan alongside this hybrid plan to what all virtual will look like, because we know that's a distinct possibility. You know, as you might recall, I think restaurants were open for a day or a half a day, and then they were closed again. And we know it's just the nature of what's going on. And certainly I don't envy the position that the governor is in having to make a lot of these decisions. But many of these decisions are truly out of our hands. We have the ability to mold them, the requirements in a way that fits our community, but the big decisions to open school, to close school right now is the governor's. And we're doing our homework. We have made sure that we've read that report extensively and all the other reports that supplement it, that it's based on. And we're committed to providing the very best situation we can. And once Damien has spoken, then I'd like to open this up for parents who have questions or thoughts that they'd like to share.
Thank you. Él quería indicar de que cuando se discute la educación virtual y transmisión en vivo de lecciones, que se está planificando toda la educación virtual con los diferentes comités específicos a las escuelas, que ellos están trabajando para asegurar que funcionará y para que todos puedan aprovechar de ese tipo de lección, como le va a tocar a bastante población educativa en Dover. Como quiera, quería también indicarle de que el gobernador ha hablado bastante recientemente sobre una opción para los padres que están comprometidos a mantener sus hijos en casa, a aprender virtualmente solamente, que ese sigue siendo una opción de parte que le proveó el gobernador. Él indicó de que va a proveer una guía a los distritos de condiciones y cómo él necesita que esos requisitos existen para educación virtual, pero hasta ahora no ha llegado. Se llegará pronto. Como quiera, están trabajando para acomodar toda esa población que necesite un grupo que se queda en casa. Se espera que esos detalles lleguen pronto. Van a estar disponibles el día 4 de agosto como parte del plan total del distrito de Dover. La prioridad máxima número 1 es la salud y seguridad de los estudiantes. Quería compartir de que eso sigue siendo la prioridad, no solo para los estudiantes, pero también la facultad y sus familias, como existe una transmisión bastante fuerte a través de la pandemia. Quieren asegurar de que van a hacer lo necesario si lo necesite o lo indique el gobernador. Hay una idea por ahí de que el gobernador ha indicado que si él tiene que cancelar escuela y ir completamente virtual, que los distritos están preparados para ese tipo de cambio también. Ese plan B es parte de otro plan que ellos tienen por si acaso el gobernador determine de que no pueden abrir la escuela en septiembre. Virtualmente deberían estar listos. Eso va a ser parte de otro plan, eventualmente si él determina cerrar las escuelas. Mientras tanto, no estamos esperando eso, estamos esperando un horario híbrido donde tenemos educación en persona en la escuela y virtualmente. Él quiere que usted sepa de que ellos han leído todos los reportes que vienen del gobierno estatal, de que cada sugerencia lo toman y que se refiere del distrito de Dover. Quiere que también sepa de que lo único que quieren es la mejor situación para toda la población de Dover. Ahora vamos a abrir para preguntas, opiniones, y si quieren compartir, él le va a dar la oportunidad ahora. Thank you.
So at this time, I would invite you, if you have something you'd like to share, there is a button in the lower right of your screen that should allow you to raise your hand. And I will read whatever name is next to your picture so that our facilitator knows to unmute you. If you don't have a name, on your screen, you can, I think there is a quick way that you can do that, although I don't really quite remember what that is. At this point, I'll try to call on whatever I see, so that whatever's on your screen identifies you and you know that you've been unmuted.
Al que tenga una pregunta, en la mano derecha abajo hay un botón que dice Raise Hand, en algunos un icono de una mano. Solo hay que oprimir ahí para que él vea quién tiene una pregunta y él le llamará su nombre, el que se encuentra aquí bajo su foto o su nombre al escrito para que él le dé la oportunidad de hablar. Thank you.
Mr. Carney? Brian, can you unmute Mr. Carney?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just, oh, yep, I see him. Sorry. Oh, I'm clicking on mute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I just got one question.
Yes.
For now, I'll follow up with some more questions tomorrow. When are you expecting to distribute the laptops to the upper level students?
Well, ideally, what we'd like to do is when students come on their first day of school is to give them to them in their class. We think that that's probably the most natural way to do it. And, you know, we can make sure that everyone has it and gets instructions at the same time.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
La pregunta fue que cómo van a distribuir la día anterior. El superintendente indicó de que cuando llegan a la escuela el primer día se le va a distribuir las computadoras.
Ms. Rivera? I think you're still muted, Ms. Rivera. Just hold on. There you go. Now we can hear you.
All right. Hi, good evening.
Hi.
So my son is in GNT. He was a GNT student of 4th grade. He was supposed to go into another school. The school he went to wasn't his home school. How was that going to be handled? When will we know what school he'll be going to?
Yes. So in all likelihood, we will, I don't think there are going to be, for a multitude of reasons, a lot of changes to the students who changed, who were in GNT. One of the factors actually that went into the 3 cohorts was those students who go to a non-home school for a program. GNT is one of those programs, and that was a factor in why we did what we did. So I think what I'm hearing from your question is some assurance that we're going to continue to run the GNT program, and we will.
Okay. So then when would we know what school he'll be going to? Because that was the first year he was in GNT and he was in the 4th grade. So he was supposed to go to another school. I don't know where he will be heading to.
Okay.
Where will we get some guidance regarding that?
Okay, so we're, Ms. Rivera, we're going to take a note of that and make sure that that we publish when school assignments for those who would have a need go out.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing that up. It's one of the reasons we have these forums is to think of things that we don't think of. So thank you for
Correct. All right. Thank you.
that. Ms. Acevedo?
Sorry, I'm looking for it.
Veronica Acevedo?
Why can't I see it? I'm sorry, I'm trying.
Okay, Ms. Acevedo, you're unmuted.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah, we have a couple of questions. They're saying that they're going to screen the kids when they come in. What if one of the kids or a teacher is asymptomatic, but they're carrying the virus?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the questions. And if the kids are in the same common areas as they're going into the classrooms, and one of these kids is asymptomatic, and you have 4 or 5 kids coming into the classroom afterwards, or when they go to the bathroom, how are you guys going to address those issues?
So thank you. That's a really great point. Temperature taking and other symptoms are certainly no guarantee. We know that individuals can be asymptomatic, and that someone may actually be positive before that manifests itself. That is one of the, I'm just going to use the word, it's one of the risks that we have, and one of the reasons why we're really going to enforce the spacing requirements. Spacing, whether kids are on their way into school, on their way to the classroom, wherever they're traveling, the 6-foot distance is going to be enforced. but I don't want to, I'm not here to tell you, don't worry about it. You know, I know it's a concern. And certainly it's an area that we're well aware, you know, is an issue as we reopen school. We may have, and I'm going to say this, I think we expect that we will experience positive cases. And we are in the process of trying to get some guidance from the state in how to uniformly respond to a positive case. Of course, there's a lot of different guidance right now that's happening in the state in terms of, well, what happens when you have a positive in a school? One county, for example, Hunterdon County, has already advised schools that they have to close that school for 72 hours. We reached out to other health officials who indicated they thought 72 hours was excessive. We've asked for the state to, and as recently as this week, asked in a county meeting if the state could provide uniform guidance so that at least from the best folks out there who provide this kind of advice, should we be closed for 24 hours? Should we be closed for 48? Should we be closed for 72? What's the best way of advising parents while protecting the confidentiality of a child? Because it's very difficult to do contact tracing if you don't know the child that you're talking about. So these are big issues that I'm just going to be very, very upfront with you that we don't have final answers on yet.
Okay. And for the younger kids, more so like when they need to go to the bathroom, how are they going to stagger bathroom use throughout the school through different classes? How is that going to?
One of the things that we've talked about, I don't want to say that this is finalized, but typically we don't do scheduled bathroom breaks, but we will probably do that. And of course, we know that not everyone uses the restroom on a schedule. So we will need to have procedures in the schools to ensure that only one student is there at a time. And of course, we have to really continue to reinforce hand washing and make sure that, you know, our students are well versed in, you know, in hygiene so that there isn't any spread from that. We'll certainly have hand sanitizer in all of our classrooms as well. So if anything, we will overdo that piece of it. But yeah, that's a piece of it. You're absolutely right.
Okay. I think that's the questions we have for now. I'm sure other parents will be emphasizing on some other questions that we have also, but we want to give them a chance too.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr.
Would you mind if I translate some of that?
Yes. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, Damien. Yes.
So
Damien's very good about reminding me, so I appreciate his partnership.
La señora Rivera había indicado de que su hijo está en cuarto grado, va para el quinto, pero que le tocaba otra escuela como una asignación cuando él llegue en septiembre y que no estaba segura a cuál escuela le tocaba. Ellos van a investigar a ver sobre cuál escuela le tocaría, a ver si hay un cambio o no, o si le tocaría mantenerse en la misma escuela elemental para el quinto grado. La señora Acevedo también preguntó sobre los estudiantes y facultad que entra a la escuela sin síntomas. El superintendente indicó que va a haber la verificación y examinación a través de termómetros para determinar eso, pero eso no garantiza de que una persona esté positivo o no a través de coronavirus. Dijo que hay, obviamente, y sigue siendo el caso de que hay gente que no expresan síntomas y eso sí es un gran riesgo, pero que lo están tomando seriamente. La respuesta es que hay que enforzar y reforzar distanciamiento social, que las escuelas están marcadas para que la gente sepan dónde se deberían caminar y dónde deberían pararse para asegurar 6 pies de distancia. Se va a también enseñar a los estudiantes y asegurarles que se tienen y reforzar que se tienen que lavar las manos, que es sumamente importante. Se espera que tal vez en un momento dado llegaría alguien a la escuela positivo con el virus. En ese caso, hay otros condados que han determinado un plan de que ellos van a cerrar sus escuelas cuando aparezca alguien así, que salga positivo con el virus, y cerrarían 72 horas. Ese no es el caso de nosotros en Morris County todavía, pero que él ha pedido al Estado para una guía uniforme para la cantidad de horas que deberían estar cerradas las escuelas cuando entre una persona que salga positivo con el virus. Son asuntos graves, son bien importantes, pero desafortunadamente no tienen una respuesta finalizada todavía en este momento. La otra pregunta fue sobre el uso del baño, especialmente los chiquitos, los estudiantes elementales. ¿Cómo van a usar el baño? Sabemos que los baños son chiquitos, etcétera. Usualmente no se provee un horario para que los niños vayan en grupos al baño, pero se le va a asignar una hora para que puedan mantener un estudiante en el baño a la vez, y se le va a reforzar que se lave las manos y que usen hand sanitizer que se le va a proveer en cada salón. Thank you.
So I'm just going to tell you who I'm calling on so you know I see you. I'm going to ask Mr. Malikuski. I hope I have that right. Then Ms. Shari, Angela, I saw your hand up physically before. So, and Ms. Rodriguez, and Ms. Matos. So I see you, and I just want to know that we will be calling you, and Ms. Acevedo as well. Mr. Malikuski? Can't hear you, I'm sorry. Let's see.
No, he was unmuted.
You try again? No? I think it's working now.
Yeah, he's unmuted. I don't know if his microphone's working.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ms. Malikuski. We can't hear you. Keep your hand up, and we'll try to come back. I'm sorry. I'm not quite sure what the technical issue is there. Ms. Shari? Okay.
I just
It's the
unmuted
same
her.
issue. It's the same issue.
I just unmuted her too.
Yeah. I'm not hearing it. I'm so sorry. I know you've been waiting. I'm just going to keep going so that we hear, but I'm going to come back. So, Angela?
Hi.
Hello?
Yes.
Mami.
Thank you so much for holding this meeting. If you don't mind, I will ask the questions in Spanish, so that way it will be more
Sure.
easy. Okay, because just I want to be sure I'm saying it right. Los estudiantes que van al Board Tech van a seguir el mismo schedule de la high school. Esa es una pregunta. La segunda pregunta es que quizás no tiene la respuesta ahora, pero ¿qué va a suceder si el estudiante tiene temperatura alta y los padres no lo pueden recoger inmediatamente? ¿Cuál sería el procedimiento para el niño? Y la tercera pregunta es la transportación. Los estudiantes que van a ir en el transporte escolar, ¿cuál va a ser el proceso? Gracias.
Okay, she had 3 questions. The first one was about Morris Votech, to see if whether or not their schedule is going to match ours and allow for those students who were accepted to Votech to continue to study there and at Dover as well. You want to take that one first?
Sure. To the best of my knowledge, Votech has not yet finalized their plan. Our intent, obviously, would be to continue that. That's going to be a little bit more challenging, but obviously, that's the students' program. So we will find a way to make that work. I just don't have the details for you yet. And probably the Morris County VOTEC is in the last portion of their planning as we are. So that might be a little bit, it potentially could even be a little bit further out than August 4th, but we'll try to finalize that arrangement as soon as possible so parents know what the details are.
Hasta ahora no está finalizado el plan y la escuela vocacional no lo ha compartido con nosotros todavía, pero deberían estar en su última fase de planificación. Pero lo más pronto que ellos comparten su plan con nosotros, podemos proveerle esa información a los padres. A la misma vez, si esa escuela determina un horario específico para ellos, le toca completar ese compromiso. Pero vamos a trabajar juntos lo más pronto posible que ellos suelten ese plan de la vocacional. The second question was, if a student is screened with a high temperature and is isolated, are they then, what's going to happen to that student if the parent can't come right away to come pick them up? What's the protocol for a kid who shows up with a high temperature?
Great question. Thank you. So each of our rooms, each of our schools will have an isolation room. It will be proximate to the nurse, but it will be staffed by a healthcare aide. It's part of what we utilized our CARES money for, was to contract for health aides who could be in the isolation rooms. The isolation rooms will most likely have partitions in them as well, in case you have more than one student who who's symptomatic. We don't want those students to be, feeding off of each other, so to speak. So they will be supervised by a healthcare professional, not the nurse, but a healthcare aide. And then obviously the parent will be called to pick up the student as soon as possible. But each of our schools will have a room. The folks who are in those rooms require special equipment that they have to wear. And also, obviously, while the students are in there, they'll be wearing masks. That's an area that we've consulted our health department on and our school physician, and we're working off of their advice on how to structure those rooms.
En términos de un estudiante que aparece con síntomas o con una temperatura alta, se va a aislar el estudiante en un salón bien cerca a la enfermera. Ahí se va a encontrar con un asistente de salud. Esa persona le va a supervisar mientras que esté en ese salón, donde se encontrará el niño separado de los demás pupitres con mámpara o tabique para que no sigan compartiendo gérmenes y que mantengan su división. A la misma vez van a llamar a los padres para indicarle que deberían venir a la escuela para recoger su hijo lo más pronto posible. Adentro de ese salón, la asistente de salud va a tener puesto equipo para protegerse y se va a enforzar el uso de mascarillas en ese mismo salón. Her last question was about busing and what is the protocol or the process to keep people safe when being bused to school.
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, one of the pieces that went into the 3 cohorts was because we do a degree of busing, shuttle busing, as well as busing from Mine Hill and busing from Victory Gardens and busing for our students who go to specialized programs. So those, the buses also will be spaced. For our own buses, we will be identifying seats where students will sit, which provides distance. The students will be required to have their masks on to be in the bus. And we believe that with the reduced amount of students that we have in the bus and the fact that they're masked and windows being open in the bus, that's also an important feature. That's a feature also that we have to do in the schools, make sure that there's open air ventilation. We believe that that will be, we're taking the appropriate safety precautions. We've also asked that all the bus companies that service us, because those are our buses that we have direct control over, that they verify that they're meeting those requirements as well.
Se esperaba esa pregunta, porque hay bastantes estudiantes que utilizan transporte de enlace entre diferentes escuelas y también los estudiantes que vienen a la escuela desde Victory Gardens y de Mine Hill, o los que asisten programas especiales. Quería asegurarle de que los autobuses que son parte del distrito de Dover, que todos están enmarcados para dejar a los estudiantes saber dónde le toca sentarse para mantener distanciamiento social, que se requiere el uso de mascarillas a todo el tiempo que estén en los autobuses. La cantidad de estudiantes se ha reducido bastante para asegurar ese distanciamiento. También se requiere que todas las ventanas estén abiertas en el autobús y también para mantener la ventilación del aire. También con los demás compañías privadas que utilizamos nosotros para transporte de los estudiantes, se requiere esas mismas reglas también y que están trabajando con esas compañías para enforzar esas mismas reglas y guías del Estado. Thank you.
Dr. McLaughlin, I think you froze a little bit.
Okay, but I think I'm back.
Okay, yep. Mhm.
Mr. Malakuski, you want to give it another try? Yeah.
Okay, Jim, Dr. McLaughlin, I have his question. He emailed me.
Oh, great, great. Okay, thank you.
Right.
That was good.
It says he was wondering, as a family that has multiple children in different grades, how is that going to work? Will they be assigned the same days to attend school?
Yeah. So thank you. I knew you had a hard question. That's why we weren't letting you speak. Yes, that question's been posed a couple of times, and I should have included it in my remarks. So if students are close in their grade bands, for example, I guess the best thing I could say, let's say Academy Street, you have a first grader and a second grader, a first grader and a third grader. We may be able to do something to coordinate that, because there's no reason in that time frame that we shouldn't be able to arrange something. However, we have lots of students who are separated, some, one might be in elementary school, another in middle school, another in high school. That's going to be very difficult to arrange. So I want to be very honest that we make an effort. We'll certainly make an effort. And when I say an effort, real effort, but I would not want to guarantee that we will be able, that I wouldn't want to say to parents, we will make sure your kids are all on the same schedule. Yeah, that I think that might work. You're very creative in your questioning. That's great. Yes, I think that's close enough that it should be able to work. And that's the premise that we're coming from. Thank you. Thanks for hanging in there and for trying different ways. Ms. Shari, can we try you again too?
Can I interrupt?
Yes.
La pregunta fue del señor Mr. Malakuski, que quería saber si uno es padre de varios hijos que asisten diferentes niveles escolares. Si pueden de alguna manera asegurarle a los padres que los estudiantes le den el mismo horario, que le toque ir a la escuela los mismos días. Él dijo que van a hacer el esfuerzo a coordinar eso cuando posible. Por ejemplo, si un estudiante elemental, un hijo esté en el primer grado y el otro en el segundo, o el otro en el tercer grado, que eso es bastante fácil para asegurar, pero que no le garantiza que es posible cada vez. Especialmente cuando los estudiantes estén asistiendo a diferentes escuelas, como una escuela elemental, una intermedia o una escuela superior, que eso es bastante difícil de coordinar estudiantes que asisten a diferentes escuelas, pero que van a hacer el esfuerzo ni modo y que se puede asegurar que van a tratar. Thank you.
Ms. Sharon?
Hi. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I have a question regarding going back to Ms. Acevedo question about a positive test. If one particular student tests positive in one group, does the school will notify the parents for that group or the entire school?
Yeah, that's actually that I probably didn't do a good job of answering the question. That's one of the things that we just asked our school physician about. Right now, we would most likely be following a similar procedure. I hate to use the analogy, but I call it the Lice procedure. You know, when a student tests positive for lice, and that's a common occurrence in schools, we notify those students who come in contact with that child. That's the first inkling, but that's not the final answer, because I know, you know, as awful as lice is, it doesn't compare to COVID. And it may demand its own protocol. One of the things this is the part that we're trying to balance. We are obligated to the degree possible to protect the confidentiality of a student who tests positive. And so we don't want to overreach in the communication. But at the same time, we're trying to look at this through every parent's eyes, you know, and saying who absolutely should be informed of this. So I guess the best thing I can tell you right now is we're still finalizing that piece. At a minimum, it would be students who that child comes in contact with. There'll be less sharing. For example, like if something happened during non-COVID, we'd have to look at classes like phys ed that might be combined, or music classes that were combined. And we don't anticipate that any classes to that degree is going to be combined. So that should help. I guess at this point, and you can see me struggling a little bit with providing you with a comprehensive answer, we would definitely be contacting those students who we're in the same space as that child, but ultimately we may end up expanding that before our final plan comes out. And I appreciate you asking. The tough questions are good. I'd love to be able to answer everyone's questions with a thorough final answer, but one of the reasons we're having this forum is to anticipate some things, again, that we have to continue working on, and things that are of concern from a parent point of view. So I hope you know, we certainly are also following up on these questions. So that's the best response I can give you at this point, but more to come.
La pregunta fue si un estudiante aparece positivo, ¿cuál es la obligación de la escuela y cómo van a notificar a los padres y la familia? Y la pregunta estaba pidiendo un protocolo de la cual todavía no existe exactamente. Ahora mismo es algo que no han finalizado, pero que es parte del proceso. Él quisiera compararlo a un protocolo cuando se encuentra un estudiante con piojo, y cuál es la estrategia ahí es a comunicar con las familias de la cual el estudiante ha contactado los hijos de aquellas familias. Por ejemplo, estudiantes que comparten el mismo espacio, la misma aula, se notificaría a esas familias. Pero hay que mantener confidencialidad a toda la familia y todos los estudiantes que experimenten un caso positivo. Eso presenta otro reto y es bastante difícil. Él entiende que es una pregunta difícil, como él no tiene una respuesta finalizada, pero él dice que le va a dar seguimiento basada en todos estos tipos de preguntas y soluciones que se presentará después, como esto es parte del proceso para asegurar un plan finalizado para el 4 de agosto. Y que agradece la oportunidad de escuchar algunas de esos asuntos y retos que nos enfrentará en el futuro.
And I just want to add one piece to that response. At a minimum, you know, we anticipate that the school where someone tests positive, whether it's a staff member or a child, will have to close for a period of time. I mentioned before, we're trying to get a advice on what is the length of time, whether it's 24 hours, 48, 72. So every parent will know, because we will have to tell them that there was a COVID case there. I think your question was specifically, will I know if my child was in contact? And so I can say yes, we would definitely let parents know if their child was in contact. We are not doing the contact tracing, the health department is, but we will provide them with information to make those calls. And contact tracing is a big part of COVID response because they interview people to see how much interaction, if there was if the 6 feet perhaps was at any time compromised, for how long would the 6 feet have been compromised, that type of thing. I don't know if you have an additional part of your question, Ms. Sherry, so I don't want to turn you off until I make sure.
Yes. You mentioned before that we will have, as a parent, we have the virtual education as an option. What happens if I go to that route, but after a month or after a certain amount of time, I changed my mind because everything so far, knocking on wood, is going good. Everybody's doing good. Can I change or vice versa?
My preliminary answer is I think we would certainly accommodate that. I don't think we would say you chose to be virtual, you have to stay virtual. And you know, barring anything that we don't see, of course, we've never been through this process before. So we might find a month into it that there's a problem. Okay, maybe someone who's virtual coming back to school would put us over the size limit. I don't know. You know, I'm just, my preliminary answer to you would be that we would want to be able to accommodate that. And I think we could, as long as you don't mind me putting in a little footnote that, you know, there may be things I'm not thinking of right now.
Okay. And the last one, I promise. What about internet access?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is any way that the school is going to provide it, or we have a plan B? Because
thank you for bringing that up. So a couple of things with internet access. We've investigated a couple of, oh, I'm sorry, you're still speaking. I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's fine.
We're investigating a couple of options that could increase, if we're able to do that, increase internet access throughout the town. One thing that I know I'll share you an idea. This is not an idea that we either have funding for or an arrangement in place. One of the things we were looking at was, could we provide cradles on buses in high density areas? High density meaning where big groups of our students live. That has potential, but it wouldn't solve the whole internet connectivity problem, because if you're not in a high density area and you don't have internet, you wouldn't benefit from that. One of the other pieces that just became available today, and we don't even know the amount of the funding, is there is a, help me, Ms. Dallapaloo, what the name of it is. The
Digital divide.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There is a digital divide opportunity that the state has made available to districts. We can apply, and believe me, we apply for everything that becomes available. So the digital divide application may provide some additional funding from the state. If it was, certainly our plan would be to utilize that. And from what we understand, it could be up to $800,000 that we might be eligible for. That certainly would help us. It would go a long way to providing hotspots or cradles on buses. We know it's a big issue in the district. We know one of the small advantages, very small advantages that we have, that we didn't have between March and June, is that some places like the public library may be open, maybe. So there might be some connectivity in town that wasn't previous. But believe me, if we can use that digital divide funding, that would be our first effort. We have other things in digital education that would also be needed, but that would probably be our absolute #1 priority. And we still might be able to do some of those things without the funding, but it's terrible, you know, when you have to talk about money, but I always find myself talking about it. You know, we are in a situation where we would just cut $2.8 million in aid. So we're we're trying to do a lot of these new things that are required because of COVID, and at the same time doing it with a little bit less funding, a lot less funding. But these applications like this digital divide does pose some potential opportunity. Damien?
La pregunta era, él quería añadir a la última pregunta que si un estudiante aparece positivo, de que toda la escuela va a saber y le va a mandar un aviso a la población entera de que tuvieron que cerrar la escuela. Pero específicamente, si la pregunta es que si el estudiante que salió positivo con el virus, si estaba en contacto con su hijo, que sí le van a avisar. Y la respuesta es que sí. Todos los estudiantes que tuvieron contacto con un estudiante en particular, esas familias se le va a dejar saber de que alguien en su salón o en una clase de ellos salió positivo, le van a avisar específicamente, pero sin darle el nombre del estudiante. Adicionalmente, el Departamento de Salud está involucrado en darle seguimiento a los contactos de ese estudiante en particular para tratar de determinar quién más tuvo contacto con ese caso positivo. Ellos hacen cosas como entrevistas para determinar los nombres y otros miembros de la familia o otros institutos donde hayan tenido contacto con otra gente. La otra pregunta fue que si una familia en particular quiere cambiar de su grupo a un grupo a otro. Por ejemplo, un grupo en particular sería el grupo virtual, que el gobernador indicó que si usted elige ser parte del grupo virtual y determina que usted prefiere tener instrucción en persona, que se le deja saber y van a hacer lo posible. Pero hasta ahora, él no tiene la respuesta finalizada para garantir ese tipo de cambio de un grupo al otro, pero tal vez es algo que es posible. Le dejará saber en el futuro si eso aparece en septiembre o en octubre. Pero como el año escolar empieza y surgen diferentes sorpresas, él no puede asegurar que uno puede cambiar de un grupo al otro porque no han empezado el año y no han enfrentado las sorpresas que vienen al principio de un año escolar. La otra pregunta era sobre el acceso al Internet, que muchas familias no lo tienen, y cuáles son las opciones. Él indicó de que hay para mejorar el acceso al Wi-Fi o a la señal de Internet, que ellos estaban pensando en enviar a diferentes locales en la ciudad donde se encuentren grupos, bastantes familias viviendo bastante cerca uno al otro, a enviar ahí una señal a través de un autobús que mantenga esa tecnología para enviar el Wi-Fi así a las familias. Una idea nueva, pero lo van a considerar también el gobierno estatal ha lanzado una oportunidad del divido digital, de que cuando haya fondos, ellos deberían solicitar, y ya están disponibles, ellos van a solicitar esos fondos para tal vez crear más oportunidades para conectividad. Ellos están tratando de asegurar $800,000 para la compra de hotspots para proveer Wi-Fi a diferentes familias. Otra idea es que ahora mismo la biblioteca está abierta y ahí mismo tiene acceso a Wi-Fi. Si una familia quiere aprovechar de esa oportunidad, ahí se presenta otra solución. Pero desafortunadamente el distrito fue cortado por un déficit de $2 millones de parte del gobierno. Así que cada vez que hay una oportunidad de búsqueda de fondos, ellos rápido solicitan para tratar de reemplazar lo que habían perdido. Thank you.
I noticed as we're speaking, a lot more hands are going up, and I also am conscious that we scheduled this to 7:30, and I don't have any urgent schedule, but I know some of you may have budgeted your time to be here till 7:30. So I would just ask, if you've already asked a question or shared a thought, if you could allow those who haven't perhaps to have the opportunity to speak, and then we can see where we stand at that point. Ms. Rodriguez, I know you've had your hand up for a while, so I'd ask if you could.
¿Me escuchan? No
Sí.
sé si me están escuchando. Gracias, señor superintendente. Yo voy a preguntar en español porque mi inglés es un poco malo. Mi niña va para la middle school. Yo tengo entendido que allá van a diferentes salones para tomar clases diferentes de matemáticas, otro salón de ciencias. ¿Los estudiantes se van a mover cuando les toque de clase en clase o van a permanecer en el mismo salón y el profesor es el que va a llegar allá? La otra pregunta es, cuando los niños vayan al baño, yo tengo entendido que los custodian, los van a desinfectar correctamente. Esos químicos que usan de pronto no es muy fuerte porque en el caso de mi hija, ella es asmática y hasta con el olor del cloro ella empieza a toser. Y la última pregunta es, lógico, nosotros vamos a mandar a los niños con sus mascarillas, con los guantes, pero si por algún motivo se cae, pierden la mascarilla o alguna cosa, ¿el colegio le proveerá estos implementos? Gracias, señor superintendente.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. She asked about her daughter who is going to, for the first time, to middle school and is potentially going to start changing classes. Depending on what class she takes, she may have English class in one room, math class in another. She wanted to know whether or not the kids are expected to change classrooms or will the teachers be classrooms?
Okay, that's a great question. Thank you. At the middle school, the teachers will be changing classes and the students will remain in their rooms. So that way we'll reduce the amount of travel. We can't do that at the high school. Doesn't really work at the high school, but the middle school we can, and that is definitely the plan. So that way we'll reduce potential contact time, and also because if students change classes, we need to clean their desks in between, and that is a system that we're actually working on right now. How will student desks at the high school be clean before the next student sits in it? That's an added layer of work, but you're absolutely right. If we want to reduce that travel and change.
Para reducir la cantidad de viaje entre salones, ellos van a mandar a los maestros a cambiar de aula o de salón uno a otro, y los estudiantes se quedarán en la escuela intermedia, en el middle school, en su salón el día entero. Para los 4 horas. Para limitar el tipo de viaje, para limitar la cantidad o el potencial de contacto entre estudiantes. También, si cambian de un salón a otro, alguien se tiene que encargar de la limpieza y desinfección de cada pupitre, y eso es bastante difícil. Ese sí es un reto para la escuela superior, donde sí tendrán que cambiar de salones los estudiantes. Pero es algo del plan que están finalizando. The next question she had was about her daughter being sensitive to some harsh chemicals, and she knows that custodians clean the bathroom to be thorough with harsh chemicals, and sometimes her daughter coughs, and she wanted to know if they would be experiencing that kind of problem.
Well, I know that students, different people respond to different chemicals. And so I can't guarantee that the chemicals wouldn't be ones that anyone would have a reaction to. But one of the things that we're certainly starting from is that the chemical has to be approved to fight COVID. There are approved chemicals, and we also, want to provide the what's the best word I can use? Kindest chemicals. As possible, but they have to be effective. We will be listing all of our chemicals in the plan that we are using. So there will be an appendix that you will be able to access in our school plan that shows what we are using. And that will also provide parents, if you're aware that your child might have a reaction to a particular chemical, to alert us to that. And it also lets you, it's also our way of showing you that that we're committed to having the right materials and cleaning substances that are designed for this particular situation.
Él indicó de que no hay una garantía de que todo el mundo que vaya al baño no va a experimentar una reacción, pero para tratar de combatir este tipo de riesgo, le van a enviar una lista de todos los materiales y recursos que usen para la limpieza de los baños en la escuela en el plan finalizado, para que pueda compartir esa información con las familias y los hijos suyos y determinar si en sí ya saben que uno tendrá una reacción a uno de esos químicos. Si ya saben que uno de esos químicos en la lista es un problema, que por favor comunique esa información a la escuela para dejarle saber que su hijo tendría una reacción con el uso de uno de esos químicos. Pero quería asegurarle que los químicos que están usando son a través de la guía estatal del gobierno para poder proveer algo que desinfecte, pero lo más importante es que elimine el virus corona. Quieren que usted sepa de que ellos están tratando de utilizar de toda esa cantidad de química, uno que sea un poco más sensitivo y no tan fuerte, pero que todavía haga el trabajo de eliminar el coronavirus. The last question she had was, what would happen if a child loses their mask or if it gets lost on their way?
We'll have replacements.
Que si se pierde una mascarilla o si se le hace daño a una mascarilla, ellos van a tener otras mascarillas en la escuela para reemplazar cualquier tipo de mascarilla que habían perdido.
Ok, muchas gracias, muy amable.
Gracias a usted.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Ms. Pineda?
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
Thank you so much for holding this forum. It's very informative. Thank you again. I guess my question right now, I don't know if it's been asked already, if you've gone over it, I've missed it, so I apologize in advance, but how are dismissals going to be handled? Because there's going to be so many, you said that they'll all get out at 12:30. They're all going to come out. Parents are going to be outside. How do you plan on handling dismissals?
Yes, that's a great question. and we know it's one of our challenges. We will have multiple and designated entrances that are not our typical entrance and exits. And one of the things that we will be doing is timing those dismissals. So and one of the things we'll be asking help with from parents who are retrieving their students is, being there at the time of dismissal. Although we'll have to have certainly a procedure in place if the parent is not there. But that is, we will have stations for dismissal. We'll tell parents what door is the door for their child. And as I said, it will not be the typical entrance and exits, although we'll use those as well, but there'll be more than that. And with the reduced amount of students in school, our plan is, and our expectation is, that we should be able to do that expeditiously, but still keep the spacing that's required. I guess the best thing I can think of is sometimes when I get in line at the grocery store and I say, I'm all the way down the aisle and this is going to take forever, but it does move. We're going to attempt it to, just as to be as good as ShopRite is in terms of moving that along.
Okay, perfect. One more question. In regards to when we're going to get the final notice, I know that in the beginning you said that we're going to start on September 2nd. We're starting earlier this year. I guess, when will parents know the final plan that Dover's going to have? So we can just work out with work schedules and everything.
August the 4th is our deadline. We have to let parents know 4 weeks ahead of time. So we will be sharing that on August 4th. However, I do want to say you know, it's as final can be. Yeah, I think
Right.
everybody knows in this situation, probably final's not a good word to use, but
Right.
we'll
It could change
address.
depending on the governor.
Right, you got it.
Okay. Perfect. As long as I know the plan for Dover, and then I can work with work. And then if the governor said something, it's a state thing. So it's
Yes.
different.
True.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Damien?
Yes. La pregunta era sobre el despido de alumnos de la escuela cada día. ¿Cuál va a ser el protocolo cuando hay tanta gente saliendo de la escuela a la misma vez? El superintendente quería compartir de que con menos alumnos asistiendo a la escuela, eso reduce la cantidad de estudiantes que están saliendo a una sola vez. Pero quería asegurar que no todos van a salir a la misma hora. Hay que indicarle a cada familia la entrada o la salida de la escuela donde va a aparecer su hijo al fin del día o donde le tocaría entrar, cuál puerta en particular. Para asegurar que tengamos distanciamiento social, va a haber varias entradas y varias salidas. Se espera de que los padres aparezcan ahí para recoger a sus hijos cuando les toque a una cierta hora en particular, para dejar que las familias se pueden ir y mantener distanciamiento social. También existe ya un protocolo en caso que no aparezca un padre para recoger a su hijo. No van a ser las entradas y salidas típicas, pero en sí se van a usar casi todas las entradas y salidas, las típicas y otras además. La otra pregunta era que cuándo van a recibir el plan finalizado, y él indicó que va a ser el día 4 de agosto, pero él no puede garantizar que va a haber otro cambio, que todo también depende del gobierno y el Departamento de Educación. Si hacen un cambio, rápidamente tienen que cambiar el plan. Hasta ahora se espera que sin cambios es el día 4 de agosto. Y quería darle esa información ese día para que tenga 4 semanas para determinar su horario de trabajo y también para acomodar a sus hijos. Thank you.
TMO's iPhone. I'm trying to unmute. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Brian, you have that?
Yeah, I think he's unmuted. Oh, he was. I'm clicking on mute. Oh, he was just there.
Okay. Ready?
All right.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience. I know your hand's been up.
No problem. I just want to say thank you for everything you guys doing for us, for our child. And my question is, my son, he's going to middle school this year. I mean, high school. So my question is, I know you guys providing the computers to them, but if he can bring his own laptop, is that something that he can do, or they're not allowed to do that?
Yeah, they won't be able to do that, and I'll tell you why. We have a number of built-in protections to the devices, and we also align it so that we know exactly what students have what devices. We can't do that with a personal device, but we can do it with a school device. So that's something that we kind of have to stick to. That they'll need to use the school device for school.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
La pregunta fue que si los estudiantes pueden utilizar sus propios o propias computadoras. Y la respuesta es que no, porque las computadoras de la escuela y del distrito son específicos y tienen diferentes tipos de protecciones. Y también para mantener eso o un update, a darle seguimiento a cada aplicación, tienen que utilizar los aparatos del distrito. Thank you.
Okay. And there's a hand up that just says iPhone.
Trying to.
Oh, I think you got it. Okay.
Hi, good evening. I have two little girls who are both in the same school and are both in the same grade. And you talked about something of how there may or may not be a guarantee of how their schedules can be aligned. So I don't have to run back and forth of taking one on one day and one on the other day. So is there any way of how I can arrange for them to go on the same days?
If they are in the same school, in the same grade, I don't think that's going to be an issue at all. As I said before, if the children are close in grade, we can most likely accommodate that. It's when it's spread out.
Yes, they are in the same grade.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
La pregunta era que si uno tiene dos hijos o dos hijas en el mismo nivel, que si se puede hacer el arreglo para que mantengan el mismo horario. Él dijo que él no espera un problema para resolver ese tipo de situación. Thank you.
Ms. Howell?
Hello.
Hi, Ms. Howell.
Hi. I am a parent of three. I've got, two kids in the elementary, one in the middle school. And, for me, and especially knowing that it's going to be 4 hours, I'm going to be doing it from home. Instead, I feel like that'll work better for me. But I do want to know if we'll have like more support virtually. Because I feel like towards the end, which I felt helped, was that they started to meet, just have like virtual meetings, and not all of the teachers did that. But I think that a virtual meeting was helpful, and also scheduling like a virtual meeting with parents would have definitely been helpful, especially when I'm hearing about other schools and, doing just that. So I want to know what kind of help can we expect virtually?
Okay. So as I mentioned, and I know this is not your question, but I want to take the opportunity. As I mentioned early in the meeting, the governor just this week announced the all virtual announcement, and we don't actually know what the details of that are yet. He promised that we would be receiving more information, and so we are awaiting that. And once we have that, we will certainly go through that and provide parents, with a response in regard to all virtual. But I think your question, even if it isn't all virtual, was what would we be doing differently? And by having devices, and again, in the beginning of the meeting, I did announce that even though we have an order in for Apple iPads, they are delayed, but we anticipate, hopefully very near the beginning of school, having those devices on hand. That allows our teachers to know that all our kids have devices, and being able to provide things like Google Classroom. We opened up Google Classroom towards the end of the year for elementary. That was, it was actually a tremendous amount of work for our technology department, because every student has to be gone into and aligned, but that's been done. Our secondary students had the Google Classroom for more of the time. So certainly we know that that's a better option, and our teachers were really advocating for it too. So it made them happy. One of the things that I wrote down that you said was virtual meetings for parents, and I'm assuming you don't mean this kind of meeting, although I'm happy to have meetings with parents, but I think parents are anxious to hear from their children's teachers. So we will bring that suggestion back. I think it's a great one. Thank you for making that. Damien?
Okay. La señora Howell es la madre de 3 estudiantes, una en la elemental y otros en la intermedia. Quería saber sobre cómo, si es posible, ella quiere tener todos en educación virtual. Ella quería saber cómo todos van a estar en ese grupo estudiando desde casa, que si van a recibir otro tipo de apoyo virtual. Por ejemplo, los Google Meets o las reuniones virtuales, no solo porque empezaron a tener muchas más reuniones virtuales los maestros con los alumnos ya al fin de la primavera. Quería saber si van a hacer algo, esos tipos de reuniones virtuales más a menudo. También ella indicó de que quisiera tener reuniones virtuales con los maestros, los padres con los maestros. El superintendente indicó de que le va a dar seguimiento y le va a traer esa información a los maestros para que ellos sepan que es algo que quieran los padres para reunirse ellos con los maestros. Quería compartir que los detalles de todo la guía del Departamento de Educación y el gobierno estatal no ha llegado todavía, pero que esos detalles cuando lleguen para el grupo virtual, que lo van a compartir en el plan finalizado el día 4 de agosto. Si se tarda más, como quiera, van a compartir esa información con la población de Dover. Él quiso que sepa que están haciendo todo lo posible para que todos los estudiantes tengan un aparato para tener tecnología en su mano. Están atrasados la distribución de iPads, que no ha llegado todavía y no va a llegar para el día 2 de septiembre, pero lo más pronto que llegue, mejor. Cuando llegue, los maestros todos van a saber que cada estudiante tenga un aparato y que tal vez podrá entonces tener unas más reuniones Google Meets o reuniones virtuales. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we have our last two folks, and we'll make this our last two responses for those of you who are kind of watching the clock, and I appreciate you hanging in here with us. It's past our time, but I think it's been great use of it. And if you think of anything tonight, you know, after we're done, please know you can email us. You will definitely be heard. You'll be responded to. We're going to publish a Q&A of what we've heard, both in the forums and in the various emails that people have sent us. And we'll also be publishing, as I mentioned to you, a survey that will go out to all parents, which will probably result in some more Q&A being added. So Ms. Matos, thanks for hanging in there. And if you'd like to share your question or thought with us.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
So thank you. I just wanted to see, I didn't read the state requirements, so I'm not 100% sure if this is just, you know, our information that's already published. But is there a list of symptoms that are going to be, you know, something that's like a checklist when a student's coming into the school? Is it just generally, if a kid's not feeling good, they should be staying home no matter what? And if they do, and they say they are sick, and maybe not COVID related, just sick in general, and they stay home, could they still do remote learning? Even if, say, that was their day in school, but they decide to stay home and they're sick, could they sign on and do the remote learning if they're capable of doing that?
Right. So I believe there are some examples of symptoms, and there's more on the CDC website. We've gone over them with our school physician, but they're not exhaustive. And I'll tell you that Dr. Ramirez said to us, you know, that you know, it really could be for the individual, it could be very different. It could be for one child, it might be an upset stomach and no fever. So there's so many things right now that we're being told could be a symptom. So that screening, and you know, as important as it is, I also don't want to overplay it. It's because it's no guarantee. As far as would a child who has to go home be able to participate? Yeah, we're not going to turn anybody away from their classroom. That would definitely be a fallback.
And can I just ask too, do you think, I know you haven't gotten the specifics down of the virtual learning yet, are you envisioning where that if my student is home for that day, they're doing the same learning that the kids in school are doing on that 4 hours, or you think that you're not 100% sure of that yet? It's not going to be virtual.
That's what we're striving for. You know, that's we really want to for children to progress and to get the full curriculum. That's what we're striving for. So it is, as you said, it's still a work in progress, but that's our focus.
The goal. Okay.
Yep.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
La pregunta era que si a los padres le va a enviar una lista de los síntomas o cosas que ellos deberían buscar antes de que envíen los estudiantes a la escuela. Y si en particular de un caso un estudiante aparece enfermo y se quiere quedar en casa, si todavía tienen el ánimo, si pueden participar en sus lesiones virtualmente. De acuerdo al doctor o el médico del distrito, él compromete de que la variedad de síntomas es tanta de que van a hacer lo posible para identificar a esos estudiantes y enviarlos a casa cuando aparezcan en la escuela, pero no están, la verificación a través de exámenes con un termómetro no es una garantía de que el estudiante tenga el virus o no. Como quiera, si usted mantiene a su estudiante en casa, pueden estudiar virtualmente desde casa si tienen el ánimo. La otra pregunta era sobre el currículo y si los estudiantes que estudian en casa virtualmente, si están estudiando el mismo currículo los que están en persona versus los que están en la casa. Y el superintendente indica que esa es la meta, de tener todos estudiar lo mismo, que es un proceso para determinar eso y eso sigue en los planes de planificación. Thank you.
And Ms. Acevedo, you've got the last question of the night, so.
Hi. So I just had a couple questions as far as like the virtual part. When the rules come out from the governor, will you hold another meeting for parents like this where we can ask questions about virtual learning?
We will, let me say that I'm always happy to meet with parents. So that's not an issue. And certainly I think having a parent forum during the month of August would be a good thing, whether it's about the virtual learning or anything else that comes out before then. So I don't think that would be a problem to have another. I don't want to say that I had a plan for that, but I'm happy to meet again.
Okay, and then my other question is, it's been said that people that are wearing the masks for prolonged periods of time are experiencing adverse reactions. So I'm just wondering, like, I know, and I would obviously feel great if my child is wearing the mask all day during the 4 hours they're supposed to be there. But if you start to see that children are experiencing adverse reactions, like, is that something that you guys have discussed as far as what plan B would be if the mask situation isn't working for these kids?
Yeah, that's we're conscious of that for all different kinds of reasons. The age of the student, the tolerance, wearing a mask can be tough, even for adults. And we have certain students with disabilities who we have students with medical conditions, respiratory issues that may pose a problem with the mask. So, in those cases, we will, the number one thing I said at the beginning, and I'm going to emphasize, the number one thing is spacing. Spacing is the most critical piece. And also the equipment that the teacher wears may have to change based on certain class conditions. In other words, we may have to give them more equipment. But we're aware of that. We know that wearing the mask isn't something that kids are either going to all tolerate well, and in all honesty, some students may also not be cooperative. So we have to anticipate that. And I don't have all the answers for you on that, but I think our attempt is going to be to have students and staff wear the masks when they're in school to the best that we're able to do that. Okay, so Damien, would you translate that last? And then I just have a few things I'd like to say to folks before they leave for the night.
La señora Acevedo tuvo la última pregunta y eran dos. La pregunta era sobre educación, sobre este tipo de reunión, si vamos a tener otra reunión en agosto. Y aunque el superintendente no había planificado para ese tipo de reunión, dice que no es un problema. Los que quieran reunirse con él mismo lo pueden hacer. Solo hay que enviarle un correo electrónico, etcétera, pero que aunque no ha planificado para tener otro tipo de reunión virtual, lo va a considerar. La otra pregunta era sobre el uso de mascarilla y el tipo de reacción adversa que tal vez experimente algunos de los estudiantes que se pongan esa mascarilla por muchas horas, por ejemplo, el día entero escolar. Y él indicó que hay bastantes estudiantes que a veces no toleran el uso de la mascarilla, que hay algunos también que no son cooperativos y que tal vez no quieran usarlo, pero hay otros estudiantes que tienen algunas condiciones que no pueden usar esas mascarillas o situaciones cuando un estudiante no puede o no se permite el uso de una mascarilla. Él quería asegurar de que la prioridad es distanciamiento social y asegurar que los estudiantes se mantengan a 6 pies de distancia a todo tiempo. También él indicó que tal vez va a tener que ver un intercambio o un cambio de mascarilla o de equipo de parte de un maestro, que tal vez ellos tengan que cambiarse de la protección. A veces van a tener que experimentar ese tipo de situación. Él no tiene todas las respuestas, pero él dice que lo más importante es que refuercen el uso de mascarilla el día entero o cuando puedan lo máximo posible a mantener la mascarilla por ahora. Thank you.
So I know, I want to thank you for two things before you leave. One, and the most important piece, and you're representatives of all of our parents here in the community. Thank you for the way that you have partnered with us since March. We know that this particular condition has been trying for families, not just because of school, but because of the way it's impacted so many of our families, you know, in their own relationships and in your jobs and just in every facet of our life. So throughout, I have to say, our parents have been positive, they've been cooperative, they've worked truly as partners with us. And I want to thank you personally, all of you who are here tonight, and also you as representatives of our whole parent body. And then my other thank you is for being here tonight. I know spending a Thursday night, 2 hours on a Thursday night is not, you know, it's a sign of your commitment to your own children, but beyond that, your voice helps every parent and every student in the district. It helps us, as I hoped I said a few times during the course of the meeting. We didn't think of that, you know, and that's what happens at any parent forum that we have. There are things that either we didn't think of, or maybe we didn't go as far in our thinking as we should. So thank you. Please know that this is incredibly important for us. And we thank you for your partnership throughout this process, and for your partnership as we move ahead.
Quería compartir con ustedes que le agradece a todos ustedes que son representantes en esta reunión de la población de Dover. Quería darle las gracias por trabajar con nosotros en equipo desde marzo, que esto no ha sido fácil para nada, que es difícil para las familias y que esta pandemia ha impactado a muchos en diferentes formas y en diferentes aspectos de sus vidas. Quería darles las gracias especialmente a todos los que están aquí, los que no también están aquí, que han trabajado tan fuerte. Le quiero dar específicamente las gracias a ustedes que aparecieron esta noche trabajando aquí en una reunión de 2 horas y para su compromiso a los estudiantes, a sus familias y a Dover. Quiero dejarle a ustedes saber que su voz ayuda un montón, ayuda a los demás padres que no podían participar, que a través de estas reuniones descubrimos diferentes retos y a la misma vez soluciones. Quería darle de nuevo las gracias por todo la ayuda que ha proveído ustedes, que ha sido increíble el trabajo que han hecho, y le da las gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Good night. Thank you again.
Muy buenas noches. Gracias.